The CEO steps out.
You're in
Smirk, arrogant. And he says it. Fix this, and I'll marry you. Laughter erupts. Everyone expects her to fail.
I'll
But
marry
she
you.
doesn't flinch. She doesn't blink. She wipes her hands and says, "Deal." Before we dive into how she shocks everyone and proves skill beats arrogance, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single moment of this incredible story. The sun blazed over the construction site, turning metal beams into mirrors and dust into golden smoke. Workers wiped sweat from their brows as the heat pressed down like a heavy hand. Engines hummed, drills shrieked, and orders echoed across the grounds. Then, a sudden sputter, a choking cough, a hiss of smoke. A sleek black SUV rolled to a stop in the middle of the site, its hood trembling as smoke spiraled upward. Everyone turned. The car was too clean, too expensive, too out of place. A moment later, the door opened. Marcus Hale stepped out. Tall, sharp-suited despite the heat, sunglasses hiding a gaze known to crush men twice his size in boardroom negotiations. He was the CEO who had turned Hale Industries into a global empire. His presence alone made workers stand straighter. As he walked around to peer at the smoking hood, a thin smirk tugged at his lips. "Perfect," he muttered. "Exactly what I needed today." Workers gathered in a nervous half-circle, murmuring. No one dared touch the engine. No one wanted to be the one who worsened the mess. Then, someone moved. A pair of grease-stained boots stopped in front of the SUV. Dark blue mechanic overalls, sleeves rolled up. A woman with strong arms, sharp eyes, and braids pulled into a tight bun. Janelle Carter. "Problem?" she asked, wiping her hands on a rag. Marcus raised a brow. "This is a high-performance V8, not whatever you're used to working on." She gave a small shrug. "An engine's an engine." Some of the workers snickered. Marcus's smirk widened. "You think you can fix this?" he asked. Janelle met his stare calmly. "Yes." He let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. Then he said the line that froze the entire construction site. "Fine. Fix this engine, and I'll marry you." Laughter burst around them. Someone actually clapped, another whistled. Everyone was entertained. Except her. Janelle didn't laugh, didn't blush, didn't look away. She tied her hair back, tightening the band with a slow, deliberate motion. Deal. The crowd quieted instantly. Marcus blinked as if he hadn't expected her to respond at all. "You're serious?" he asked. "I don't say things I don't mean." She stepped past him and lifted the hood, letting the thick smoke curl around her face without flinching. The workers leaned in. Marcus crossed his arms. She stared at the engine like a doctor examining a patient. Her fingers brushed the belts, traced the coolant line, pressed lightly against the slipping tensioner. "Your system's failing," she murmured. "Someone tried to fix it before. They made it worse." Marcus scoffed. "You can tell all that by just looking?" Janelle didn't answer. She simply got to work. The sun beat down, sweat beading on her forehead, but her hands moved with precision, disconnecting, tightening, rewiring, adjusting. The air around her shifted as the laughter slowly died. The crowd wasn't amused anymore. They were watching. Minutes passed. Then more. Marcus checked his watch impatiently, but every time he glanced back at her, the confidence on her face unsettled him. She was too calm, too sure, too good. Finally, she stepped back. "Try it." Her voice was soft, but it carried across the entire site. Marcus hesitated.
Then opened the door, slid into the driver's seat, and turned the key. The engine roared to life, smooth, deep, powerful. Not a cough, not a stutter. The workers gasped. Some cheered. Someone yelled, "She did it!" Marcus sat frozen, staring at the dashboard as if it had betrayed him. Janelle wiped her hands, her face unreadable. "You owe me something," she said quietly. The entire site fell silent. Marcus stepped out slowly. "You really expect me to?" "You said it, not me." Her voice held no threat, just truth. Marcus swallowed hard, suddenly aware of the phones pointed at him, recording every second. In one reckless sentence, he had underestimated the wrong woman, and now his words were coming back to claim him. The next morning, Marcus Hale sat in his corner office, the highest floor, the best view, the kind of place built to make a man feel untouchable. But today, he didn't feel untouchable at all. His phone buzzed nonstop. Notifications, mentions, messages. Someone had uploaded the video. CEO makes marriage bet. Mechanic actually fixes engine. Janelle Carter, the woman who outfixed a billionaire. Internet wants Marcus to honor his promise. He dropped the phone onto the desk and pressed his palms into his eyes. The whole world wasn't laughing at the joke. He was the joke. A knock came at the door. His assistant stepped in, nervous. "Sir, the board called an emergency meeting. They want to discuss the situation." Marcus exhaled sharply. Of course they do. As he walked down the hallway, employees pretended to focus on their computers, but their eyes followed him. Not with respect, with curiosity, with amusement. The moment he entered the boardroom, the director sat rigid, arms crossed, expressions carved in stone. "Marcus," the chairman said, "tell us this is not real." "It was a joke," he replied, "a stupid one." "But the internet doesn't see it as a joke," another director snapped. "Your name is trending, your company is trending, your bet is trending. It makes you look arrogant," someone else added, "reckless." Marcus clenched his jaw. "You think I don't know that?" A long sigh came from the end of the table. "Do whatever you must," the chairman said. "Fix this. Quietly." Marcus left the meeting with a storm behind his eyes, but even as anger simmered, something else crept in. An image of Janelle. Calm, steady, absolutely confident amid chaos. It bothered him more than the board meeting.
Later that afternoon, he returned to the construction site. Workers paused, exchanging looks. Some whispered, a few smirked, and then they stepped aside. Because she was there. Janelle was under a lifted truck, boots sticking out, sparks flying as she used a power tool to cut a rusted bracket loose. She slid out when she heard him approach, pushing her goggles up. Their eyes met. No fear on her face, no embarrassment, no apology. "How's the engine?" she asked simply. "Running," he muttered. "Good." He exhaled, trying to choose his words with care. "We need to talk about the situation." She folded her arms. "Which one?" "The video, the bet, the internet tearing me apart." He paused. "And the fact that everyone expects me to honor what I said." Janelle nodded slowly, studying him. The silence stretched, but she didn't rush to fill it. "You're upset because people think you should keep your word," she finally said. "It was a joke," he repeated. "No," she corrected softly. "It was a test." He frowned. "A test of what?" "A test of whether a powerful man would underestimate a woman like me." For the first time since the engine roared back to life, Marcus had no comeback. Janelle leaned against the truck, wiping grease from her hands. "I don't need you to marry me," she said calmly. "That's not what this is about." "Then what do you want?" he asked. She looked at him with a level, unflinching gaze. Respect. The wind shifted, dust swirled around them. Somewhere across the site, a drill whined, but here, in this moment, everything was quiet. Marcus swallowed, the weight of her words settling deep. "I owe you more than respect," he admitted, voice low. "I owe you a real apology." She raised an eyebrow. "Then say it." He straightened, met her eyes, and for the first time dropped every layer of pride. "I'm sorry, Janelle. I shouldn't have mocked you. I shouldn't have doubted you, and I definitely shouldn't have made that bet." Her expression softened by a fraction. "Thank you," she said. But inside Marcus, something unexpected flickered. Humility, yes, but also curiosity. Because this woman wasn't intimidated by his power, wasn't impressed by his money, wasn't interested in his reputation. She only cared about truth. And that made her more dangerous to him than any business rival. He took a breath. "It doesn't erase what I said," he murmured. "And people want answers. They want a story." Janelle stepped closer, the faint scent of engine oil following her. "Then give them one," she said calmly. "The real one." Marcus blinked. "What do you mean?" "You came here thinking this ended with a joke. But maybe—" She tilted her head slightly. "Maybe it's just the beginning." And for reasons he couldn't explain, those words sent a slow chill down his spine. Nothing about this woman was ordinary. Nothing about this story was going to be simple. And deep down, he knew he wasn't done with her. Not even close. That evening, the garage lights buzzed softly as Janelle locked up. The sky outside had turned a deep indigo, streaked with fading orange, the kind of twilight that made the world feel quiet, almost honest. She slung her tool bag over her shoulder and stepped outside, only to stop abruptly. Marcus Hale was standing beside her truck. No suit this time. No polished shoes, just jeans, a dark jacket, and an expression she couldn't quite read. "You followed me," she said, not accusing, just stating. "I needed to understand," he replied. "Understand what?" He hesitated before answering. "How you became you." Janelle raised an eyebrow. "You came all the way here because you're curious?" "No," he said, voice low. "Because I can't get you out of my head." She blinked, caught off guard for the first time. "Marcus, not like that," he clarified quickly, though his eyes held something deeper. "I mean your confidence, your skill, your certainty. It's rare. I can't ignore it." She studied him carefully, trying to see the angle, the motive, the catch. But, for once, the powerful CEO standing in front of her looked human. "Walk with me?" he asked. After a moment, she nodded. They walked down the quiet street, the crunch of gravel under their boots filling the silence. Finally, Marcus said, "Tell me, how did you learn all this? Engines, diagnostics, rebuilding cars from the ground up?" Janelle took a slow breath before answering. "My father was a mechanic, one of the best. I grew up in his shop, handing him tools, watching him fix machines nobody else could. He taught me everything." Her voice softened. "He used to tell me, engines don't care if you're a man or a woman. They just need someone who listens." Marcus glanced at her. "And you listened?" "Always." They reached the edge of a small park, the streetlights flickering on in soft pools of yellow. Janelle leaned against a bench, looking up at the sky. But when I tried to get hired anywhere, she continued, nobody wanted a woman. Definitely not a black woman, and definitely not one who knew more than the men interviewing her. Marcus felt a sting of shame, not for himself, but for the world realizing he'd never truly seen. So I started fixing cars out of my dad's old garage. Word spread, people came, I survived. She paused. But I also learned something. Learned what? That people assume your limits before they ever see your abilities.
Her eyes met his, like you did. Marcus swallowed, guilt stirring again. You're right, he admitted. I did assume, and I was wrong. Marcus, she said calmly, you're used to people who fold under you, people who rush to impress. I'm not built that way. I know, he murmured. That's what unsettles me. The wind moved lightly through the trees. For a brief moment, the world felt suspended. Just the two of them standing in a quiet space between past and future. Janelle broke the silence. Why does it matter to you? What does my story change for a man like you? Marcus looked away, searching for the words he rarely needed. Because somewhere between yesterday and today, I realized the world doesn't work the way I thought it did. He turned back to her. And because you make me question who I've been. Her expression softened just enough to let a sliver of warmth through. That's on you, she said gently. Not me. He nodded. But then she added, doesn't mean I can't help you figure it out. Marcus blinked, surprised. Why would you? Because people get better by facing the truth, she said. And you came here tonight to face yours. The moment hung between them, heavy but alive. Then Marcus said quietly, the board wants me to repair the PR damage. They want a clean, simple narrative. Janelle smirked. And I'm guessing I don't fit the clean, simple version. No, he said. You fit the real one. She straightened, picking up her tool bag. Then let's tell it right. Marcus frowned slightly. Together? She nodded once. Together. And just like that, a silent agreement settled in the air. Not partnership, not friendship, not yet. But something is forming. Something unexpected. Something neither of them could name. As she headed toward her truck, Marcus called out, Janelle? She turned. You really shook my world yesterday. She smiled. Not wide, not bright, just enough to say she heard him. Good, she said. It needed shaking. Then she climbed into our truck, engine rumbling steadily, and drove off into the night. Marcus stood alone under the streetlight, watching her taillights fade. And he knew with sudden clarity, this wasn't a one-time crossing of paths. This was the beginning of something far more complicated. And he wasn't ready to walk away. Not now, not ever. Morning sunlight spilled across the city, but Marcus Hale barely noticed it. His office was filled with buzzing phones, blinking notifications, and headlines exploding across every platform. Mechanic outshines CEO. The bet heard around the internet. Is Marcus Hale afraid to keep his promise? Every article, every comment, every viral clip seemed to tighten a rope around his career. But underneath that pressure was something else. A pull toward the truth. Toward her, toward the story that was no longer just about a broken engine. Marcus stared at his computer screen for a long time before picking up his phone. He scrolled, found her number, hesitated. Then he pressed call. When Janelle answered, her voice was steady as always. Morning. I think we need to get ahead of this, he said. Agreed. Can you come to my office? No, she replied simply. He blinked. No? You want the truth told, right? then we're not doing it from your glass tower. Where, then? Moments of silence passed before she said, "My place, my garage." Marcus hesitated before answering. "I'll be there." The garage was busier than usual when he arrived. Customers whispered, mechanics paused their work, and a few phones discreetly tilted in his direction.
Laughter, warm this time and not mocking. But I also believe people can grow, she continued, even CEOs. Marcus's lips curved. I'm trying. Good, she said. Hold that. The camera stopped recording, and for a long, still moment, they just looked at one another, two human beings finally standing on the same ground. But neither of them noticed one thing. The video hadn't just recorded truth. It had recorded chemistry. Real, undeniable, unavoidable. And the internet was about to explode again. The moment Maya slid under the massive SUV, the entire shop watched her like she was attempting the impossible. To them, she was. The vehicle wasn't just any car, it was Brandon Hale's pride and joy, a one-of-a-kind luxury SUV modified with custom European engineering that even his top technicians avoided touching. For months, no one could figure out the problem. Not his senior engineers, not the specialists he flew in from Germany, not even the dealership's master techs. But Maya wasn't nervous. She was focused. Tools clinked softly in her hands as she examined the engine. Her eyes traced every connection, every bolt, every sound the machine was making. What is she even doing? One technician whispered. She's going to make it worse, another muttered. She doesn't even belong here, someone else added under his breath. But Maya didn't respond. Didn't flinch, didn't even blink. She heard everything. She had heard comments like that her whole life. But she learned something early on. Engines don't lie. People do. 20 minutes passed. Brandon stood above her, arms crossed, the same smug smirk on his face from Chapter 1. He expected her to fail. He wanted her to fail. You find the magical problem yet? He mocked. Maya didn't look at him. She simply said, yes. The room went silent. Brandon blinked. What? She slid out from under the SUV, picking up a small, barely noticeable metal piece. This, she said, holding it up, is why your engine keeps misfiring. A tiny fracture in the fuel reel pressure sensor, invisible unless you know exactly where to look. The mechanic stepped closer, staring in disbelief. No way, one whispered. She found that in half an hour, another muttered. That's impossible, someone said. Brandon narrowed his eyes. Prove it. Maya didn't answer. She didn't need to. She walked to the parts cabinet, grabbed a replacement sensor from the universal bin, and returned with calm confidence. Her hands moved fast, faster than anyone in the room had ever seen a mechanic work. Every twist of the wrench was clean. Every adjustment was precise. Brandon watched closely now, too closely. His smirk faded, his confidence faded, his doubt grew. 10 minutes later, Maya stepped back. Try it, she said. Brandon hesitated then, got into the driver's seat. He turned the key. The SUV roared, not loudly, but smoothly, with the deep, flawless purr of a perfectly tuned machine. Mechanics froze. One dropped his wrench. Another gasped. Brandon's eyes widened so much Maya could see the reflection of the dashboard lights in them. It's fixed, he whispered. Maya nodded once. I told you I could handle it. The mechanics erupted around her. Some cheering, some stunned silent, some unable to comprehend what they just witnessed. But Brandon? He stepped out of the car slowly, walked toward her, and for the first time since he met her, he wasn't smirking. He was speechless. And that was the exact moment, the turning point, the second everything changed. Because now he had no more jokes, no more insults, no more doubts. Only the truth. She was better than every mechanic he had ever hired, and whether he wanted to or not, he had no choice but to respect it. The garage fell silent. Not the soft, peaceful kind of silence, but the heavy, electric kind, like the air itself was holding its breath. Brandon stood there, the CEO who had once mocked her, now frozen in place, as Maya wiped the grease from her hands and closed the hood of his luxury SUV with a clean, confident click. He had no more excuses. No more jokes, no more doubts, because the engine, his prized, custom-built machine that no one else could diagnose, was running smoother than it had since the day he bought it. She had fixed it. She had done what he bet she couldn't. And now, everyone remembered his words. Fix this engine, and I'll marry you. Those words came back like a slap. The mechanics standing around tried not to stare.
Some even stepped back, ready to pretend they hadn't heard it. But Brandon knew. They all knew. He had said it loud, proud, and arrogant. He swallowed hard. "Maya," he said quietly, almost cautiously, "can we talk?" But Maya wasn't in the mood for private words, not after the way he humiliated her the first day she walked into his corporate shop, laughed at her, dismissed her, told her she didn't belong. "Whatever you need to say," she replied, "you can say right here." Brandon exhaled. His voice was lower now, nothing like the mocking, confident tone he used to carry. "You really did it. Better than my own engineers. Better than the guys I've paid triple what your hourly rate is." He stepped closer, and for the first time, he didn't look like a CEO. He looked like a man who finally understood he was wrong. "I owe you an apology," he said. "A real one." The room stayed silent. Even the machine seemed to stop humming. "I judged you the second you walked into my shop," he admitted, "not because of your skill, but because of who I assumed you were." He shook his head at himself. "And I was wrong, completely wrong." Maya didn't react. She just looked at him, steadily, waiting. Brandon took a slow breath and then dropped the real bomb. "And about that bet?" He paused. "I wasn't serious. I know that. Everyone knows that." The other mechanics pretended to be busy, but all ears were listening. "But I also know I said it, and you held up your end." Then he did something no one expected. He removed his expensive watch, placed it on the tool bench, and straightened his posture like he was stepping into a board meeting. "So I'll hold up mine, not with marriage, but with something better." The room leaned in. "I want to hire you," he said. "Not as a mechanic, not as an assistant, as my lead engineer, head of diagnostics, top of my team, and I want to build a department around your methods." The garage erupted. Even Maya's eyes widened just a little. A CEO offering her, the woman they mocked, one of the top positions in the company? Brandon wasn't finished. "And the salary," he added quietly, "will match mine." The noise died instantly. No one breathed, no one moved, no one had ever heard of a CEO offering a mechanic, especially a black woman in a male-dominated field, a salary equal to his own. Maya stared at him. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why such a big offer?" Brandon looked her straight in the eyes. "Because you earned it, and because I don't want to lose someone like you." Maya didn't answer yet. She didn't need to, because the story wasn't done, and neither was their journey. The shop was still buzzing with shock, but Brandon stood frozen. Everything he thought he knew about Maya, about her skills, her worth, her place, had been shattered in less than an hour. His impossible engine now purred like it rolled straight off the assembly line. And the woman who fixed it? She wasn't celebrating, she wasn't bragging. She simply wiped her hands and stood there, calm, confident, unbothered. Brandon finally walked towards her, slow, careful, almost humbled. "So you actually did it," he said quietly. Maya didn't step back, didn't look away. She stood tall. "You made a bet," she replied, "and I completed the job." Behind them, the crew whispered the words that had started as a joke. "Fix this engine, and I'll marry you." At first, Brandon smirked, embarrassed. But the smirk didn't last. The room watched him. The woman he misjudged stood in front of him, and the weight of his own arrogance sat heavy on his shoulders. He let out a breath. "You know that was just a joke?" Maya finished softly. "I know, and don't worry. I don't want anything from you." Those words didn't sting. They cut, because for the first time he realized something. She wasn't impressed by his money, his status, or his name. She didn't even care. And that shook him more than the engine ever could. Brandon studied her, really looked at her. Her quiet strength, her steady hands, her unbreakable confidence. And then something unexpected happened. His shoulders dropped. His voice softened. "Maya, I'm sorry," he announced. The whole shop went silent. He wasn't a man who apologized. Not in boardrooms, not in meetings, and definitely not on workshop floors. But here he was, doing it anyway. "I judged you before I even gave you a chance," he said. "And today, you proved me wrong." Maya nodded once. "Thank you," she said simply. No gloating, no bitterness, just grace. Brandon glanced at the crew who were still teasing him. Then he looked back at Maya. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I meant what I said in a way I didn't understand at the time." She raised an eyebrow. "And what way is that?" He hesitated, the longest pause of his life. "In a way that shows I underestimated the kind of woman who could actually stand beside a man like me." Maya breathed out slowly. Calm, unmoved, but there was something soft in her eyes now. "I don't need to stand beside you," she said. "I just need to stand where I deserve." Brandon nodded. "And you do," he replied. "Much higher than I ever placed you." A quiet moment passed. No noise, no teasing, just honesty. Finally, Maya stepped back, picking up her tools. "Well," she said with a small smile, "I think our business here is done." Brandon swallowed. The words he wanted to say stuck in his throat. He ran a hand through his hair. "If you ever want a job here," he said carefully, "my door is open. No conditions, no jokes, no bets." Maya shrugged with a light smirk. "I don't work where I'm underestimated," she said, "but I appreciate the offer." And with that, she walked out of the shop. Head high, back straight, own story intact. The crew slowly returned to their tools. Brandon watched her go until she disappeared completely from view. Then he whispered to himself, almost too quietly for anyone to hear, "I should have never made that bet." But deep down, he knew the truth. That ridiculous joke, that arrogant challenge was the moment he met someone who changed him. Not because she fixed an engine, but because she fixed something inside him he didn't even know was broken. And that's how the story ends. Not with a wedding, but with respect earned, pride humbled, and a man finally seeing clearly. The end.
If you have been underestimated at work, comment how you felt. And don't forget to subscribe and share so that underestimation can stop.